Hello from the wall of collected treasures, guides, totems in my room. Shout out to all of those who gifted and made any of these beautiful creations for and to me, including these new snake bone earrings from a dear friend that are pretty much my new favorite thing in the world and make me feel like a real life priestess. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about synchronicity. And what is synchronicity? It might be a word that you guys are hearing used a lot, and Carl Jung is actually the one to have coined the term, the famous psychoanalyst who was a protege of Freud's, Sigmund Freud's, and then kind of went off and did his own thing, and really a great pioneer in integrating psychology with magic and writing a lot about that in many of his published books, none of which I have read in full. I've only read a lot of Jung excerpts and listened to some of his speeches and parts of his books read. And he's someone whose work really influences my outlook on the world. Also very deep and big into dream interpretations, and has influenced my use of dreams in understanding myself and my unconscious. So I liked this definition that I found of the short definition of what synchronicity actually is, according to Jung. So synchronicity is an acausal connecting principle whereby internal psychological events are linked to external world events by meaningful coincidences rather than causal chains. So a big part of what synchronicity is for me, or the way that I describe it, is when we are able to observe things that happen in our outside world that are directly linked to things that are going on in our inside world that cannot be explained by cause and effect, and rather is explained by connection that, again, is acausal. So it's not really the idea of, oh, I thought this inside and so then that happened on the outside. It's more like as within, so without, in this sort of reflective way. Cool that's a synchronicity right there. Literally that. Oh man, you can't make this shit up. I was like, cool that I have a mirror as I'm talking about how, for me, synchronicity is about those moments of meaning. They bring meaning and connection to our lives, this sense that there's a connection between inner and outer, which is, I would say, I would argue, I would promote that a belief and a felt experience of a connection between our inner and outer worlds is something that brings meaning into our lives. And so synchronicity, like this mirror, to me is almost more of a reflective principle. When things happen in our outer world that reflect things that were going on in our inner world, and can then feel like this confirmation of meaning and connection and that reflection. So I have some examples of some synchronicities in my life that it really, to me, also a synchronicity is anything where I say, one of my favorite phrases is to say, you can't make this shit up. So if I'm saying you can't make this shit up, it's like, that's a synchronicity. That is a moment where something internal, psychological, spiritual going on inside of me is reflected in the external world by meaning, and in the past, by the word we probably would have used to describe this as coincidence. And really, a synchronicity could be thought of as a meaningful coincidence. And I tend to think that all coincidences now are meaningful, and I pay attention to them as markers and signs of something that is showing a coherence in my inner and outer world that's kind of like an arrow pointing the way. So an example of a recent synchronicity that happened yesterday, my dear friend and mentor, Regina, who is so encouraging of my creative work in these YouTube videos, and who, again, I will link to down below in the About section, because if you get a chance to work and have a relationship with Regina, she, speaking of bringing the inner to the outer, she is someone who helps us to take our inner dreams and bring them, will manifest them, birth them into the outer world through actionable steps. And she's really helping me a lot. And right now I'm in a sacred container of hers called Envision. It's literally called Envision. Okay, so that's the name of her sacred container. And yesterday on the Pattern app, this is the update that she coincidentally got about our friendship and what's going on in our relationship. So because the Pattern app also, if you don't have it, is an amazing app that tells you it reads your chart and gives you like this very deep astrological map of yourself that, again, I think is just about meaning making, because it's this idea that your soul's purpose is connected to the time and place that your soul chose to incarnate in your body, and understanding that these things that are connected to the kind of energies that are present when we are born at a certain place in time, hence our astrological map, that outer happening is connected to our inner purpose. So I've gotten really into astrology and love it. So the Pattern sends these updates with people that you're friends with on the Pattern. And it's really cool too, because it shows the compatibility and interaction between your charts with other people. So this was the update that Regina got yesterday, which was on a day we were meeting for Envision. And Envision is this container that Regina is holding, in which she is helping all of us to envision and connect with who we are, who we want to be, and what it could look like to live into the highest and most powerful and true and authentic and courageous versions of ourselves. This was the update that Regina got about our relationship yesterday. So this is from her perspective. So when it says you, it's talking about Regina. You, Regina, are initiating changes, helping Verge let go of who she thought she was to create space for something new to emerge. Your influence may activate and usher in a whole new vision for Verge. So that's an example of synchronicity, right? Like, as I am in this container with Regina called Envision, where she is actually literally helping me to do everything that it just said in that, like activate in a whole new vision, come into my highest self, let go of who I've been to be who I can become. She literally receives an update from the Pattern app saying, you're helping Verge to usher in a whole new vision in her life on the day that we have an Envision meeting. So that's an example of the synchronicity. I also think that synchronicities for me can apply to dreams and sort of deja vus. Like, to me, synchronicity could be broadened to say anything where you get those electric moments where you realize, like, wow, the inner world and the outer world are connected. And another way that I experience this a lot is through tarot and other forms of divination. Here's another example of synchronicity that just happened to me this morning. I sent a new friend a voice memo in which I was basically saying, I love you, because I was talking about, I'm going to link down below to this. I'm reading the book Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. And I want to fucking encourage everyone who's watching this video to check into that book. Like, one of her quotes that she begins that book with is that pleasure is a measure of our freedom. And for me, experiencing pleasure is a journey into freeing myself from the confines of just all the ways that we've been culturally fucking repressed and programmed, from the patriarchy, from colonialism, from capitalism, from just materialism in general, from meaninglessness, from isolation. And so I really, 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 really recommend, I'm going to just go get it. I really recommend the book Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. It's right here. And actually, so I was inspired by some of the ideas that she has in this video. I was inspired to tell my friend I love them, because you know what? Like, I'm not here to hold my love as some protective mechanism or some kind of power game, or like time and like there are all these parameters before I can tell someone I love them. And especially if it's in any kind of romantic sense, it's like, no, when I feel love for someone, which could happen in the moment I meet them, I want to share and express that because that's pleasurable for me. That's empowering, and that's a power that I have. So I sent this voice memo basically saying that, like, I'm not going to live in this world of like, oh, how long is long enough to wait before saying I love you? Like, I meet friends and have a deep connection with them within one day, and I'm saying I love you. So why would I not extend that to someone who's a lover and a friend? And when I sent that voice memo, I was just curious because I had just read this definition of synchronicity by Carl Jung, and I was like, well, I'm just going to do a little test, to see if tarot is a real indicator of synchronicity, or at least can be. And so I was like, okay, so what was the tarot energetic signature of that voice memo that I just sent, in which I'm voicing I love you, and I want to be empowered saying that, and I want to live in a world where I just tell people when I love them and not feel like that has to mean anything except what it is to me. And the tarot card that I drew for what was the signature of that voice memo message was the Two of Cups, which is literally called love. So that's an example of a synchronicity. And then another example of a synchronicity that I will share right now is my cousin. This is just an example of a dream synchronicities. So my cousin had a dream in which she saw this pair of eyes. She could only just see like the eyes in the dream. This pair of eyes that basically said like, this is your lover, this is your partner, that's who this is. And she had this sense in the dream of like, wow, why are those so familiar? Why is that so familiar? But she didn't know who it was. And it was like, this is your lover, this is your partner. And then like a couple days later, she literally saw a picture of someone with those eyes. And so and again, it's just this sense of like, it's all connected. I think that's what synchronicities give us. And I feel like dreams are a representation also of our inner world. And so those moments, and that's why it's cool to pay attention to dreams, and to pay attention to our inner process, and to pay attention to our visions, and to pay attention to what is going on psychologically, spiritually, emotionally inside of us. Because when we do, and we're connected with that, and we're also able to cultivate our presence in the outer world, we begin to see that reflective principle, which is synchronicity, which is that reflection, as within, so without, and as without, so within. And I think it's not causal also, I would say, because it's more like a spiral. It's more like it's all on the same like circle or spiral, not that one is causing the other, that it's all connected and intertwining and interweaving, or maybe like a lemniscape, like a infinity sign, and that the synchronicities are those moments when it touches in the middle and you realize, oh, like I thought it was like two circles, like outside and inside, and really they're connected. So that's just a little bit for me about what synchronicity means. Thank you, Carl Jung, for the work that you did in that and for the things that you published and shared. That's inspiring to me too, because if Carl Jung had just had all those ideas and never published and shared it, and never written these books and never given these speeches, then he would have just kept those to himself. So it's an inspiration to me to be out here sharing what I'm discovering, what matters to me, because who knows, maybe it'll inspire someone else and give meaning to their lives. Sharing the magic of meaning. That's what I'm here to do. All right. Ooh, I love this. I love this frame. Horsetail. That was my horse Blossom. Blossom blessings, synchronistic wishes and activations to you. And I'd love if in the comments you want to share any recent synchronicities that have happened. I think that sharing synchronicities with each other helps encourage all of us to pay attention to our inner and outer worlds and the way that they connect and reflect. Talk to you soon.